Hi guys, Paul Michaels from Real Dog Training, making another video. Today's video is about deer dogs chasing deer. So this is another one that comes up all the time. Have a lot of people come in for one-on-one stuff, calling with problems that they're having with their dog, and a lot of it is associated with their dog chasing deer or unsteadiness around deer, whining and anticipation surrounding the shot and after the shot or even before the shot. Something that always comes up often comes up is the subject of dealing with wounded deer and how people do that, and a lot of these serious problems with dogs being unsteady on deer, breaking on deer before the shot, whining before the shot, and whining and barking and breaking after the shot. It's all anticipation, and it's all anticipation of getting to chase after the shot. And 9 times out of 10, it has been created by people letting their dog run out and chase wounded deer, or not even that, but sending their dog out to deer that they've shot. So they want the dog to wind and track and sneak in and point the deer, and then when they shoot the deer, they send the dog out, away you go, and the dog takes off and runs off on its own and finds the deer. Or worse still, they sneak in, take the shot and wound the deer. Deer's still mobile on its feet, and then they send the dog off, and now the dog's chasing a wounded deer. Either way, when you look at it, you're training a deer dog to sneak in, point and indicate deer. What you're doing by sending dogs in on deer after the shot, whether they're dead or wounded or alive or anything, is creating a lot of anticipation for the dog surrounding chasing deer, particularly around the shot. And if you get to a point, which some people do, where the dog just takes off at the shot, then what happens is the shot starts to become the command for the dog to go. And that's when you get people who their dog starts anticipating the shot, which is the command to go. And I have guys coming to do one-on-ones where their dog's got to the point where every time they work the action of their rifle or lift it to their shoulder, their dog just starts whining, waiting for the shot so it can run and go, run and chase. And even worse is that all that anticipation and that kind of chasing type behaviour can start to creep in before the shot and create unsteadiness even when you're sneaking in and stuff like that. Next thing, now you've got a dog that's just anticipating chasing a deer, period. And if you really understand the way dogs think and how basic and reactive and instinctive they really are, you can end up in a situation where you sneak in and shoot deer, and then you send your dog out, and every time your dog runs out, it hits so all the dog knows is that there's deer out in the bush in front of it. And then it doesn't necessarily take into consideration the fact that you fired a shot and that the shot is the reason the deer has fallen over and dead when it gets there, or that the shot is the reason why the deer is wounded and it can actually catch up and stop it or bail it or drag it down or whatever it ends up doing. You just get a dog that all they start to realise or believe is that when they run out and chase a deer, they end up catching up to it, and it either ends up laying there dead or they can catch up and pull it down. So you can get to the point where the dog just decides, well, why the hell do I wait till after the shot or till I get sent? Why don't I just run out there, start chasing these things around and see if I can catch up to one, or see if it happens to die. Dogs literally, their thought processes can be that basic. And so people do all these things and then wonder why their dog's behaviours and steadiness starts falling to bits, and everything starts turning into a bit of a mission. So the way I train and the way I train people to train and hunt is the dog just never chases a deer, whether it's wounded or dead or anything. The dog's place of work is right in front, and all they're ever doing is taking us to and indicating deer so we can shoot them. So even if I put a really good shot on a deer, even if a deer is standing in the bush right in front of me in plain view and I head shoot it and it just poleaxes on the spot and is laying dead on the ground in plain sight, less than 20 metres away, my dog still isn't allowed to run up to it. It's not even allowed to show anticipation. It's got to wait quietly, and then will only proceed forward when the dog's calm and doing so close in front with me. And what that does is it just keeps all that calm, desirable behaviour as habit. That's the only way the dog ever does it and succeeds. And anytime it tries to deviate from that, I'll just correct the dog and keep it in. And what that does is, like I said in my series of articles on training fly, practice on the easy ones so the hard ones are easy. You shouldn't even be hardly ever wounding deer, like hardly ever. Some people that come to me and talk about how many wounded deer their dogs chase to end up unsteady. The first thing you have to start asking yourself is, why the hell are you wounding all these deer? Granted, it happens occasionally, no matter how careful you are. If you shoot enough deer, you'll eventually have a problem somewhere and you'll wound one, and when that happens, it's really, really good to have a good deer dog there to track it for as long as it takes to catch up with it and finish it off, finish the hunt. But tracking wounded deer should be a very rare occasion. So this whole thing of even when a dead deer that you've shot right in front of you is just falling straight over and just laying there stone dead in plain view, and still not letting the dog run up to it, just making it take you to it slowly. This is just getting the correct behaviour in place for the unfortunate event that comes along where you've got a deer that's lightly wounded and fully mobile, and in challenging conditions, and you've got to put another shot on it. I regularly talk to guys, or have guys come for one-on-ones that want to work on their dog, because had a guy recently that shot a real nice big trophy Sika stag, and he hit it fairly, he was quite confident it was a fairly good shot, but the deer wasn't down, and he was just getting in to put a finishing shot on it. And the way the situation was, it looked like a good situation that he was gonna, well, not a good situation because he's got a wounded deer, but he felt that he was about to get a follow-up shot on it when his dog broke, chased it about 1 kilometre. The dog did catch up with the stag. It was a big, like I said, a big trophy Sika stag. Sounded like it could have been like a trophy of a lifetime. The dog broke just before he got another shot in on it. Chased it about 1 kilometre, and when the dog finally did stop the stag just beat the hell out of the dog, and the dog come back with its tail between its legs, and he lost the stag. So, people talk about sending dogs out after wounded deer and stuff like that. Yeah, there is some occasions where, in the right conditions, with a really hard, fast dog in really thick bush or steep country or heavily wounded deer, it does work. But for every time that it works, there's lots of other situations that sending a dog out after a wounded deer just makes everything way, way, way worse. Heaps more stress for the deer. You can end up pushing a deer that you could have otherwise easily snuck in on and just put a quick, humane finishing shot on it. You send a dog, it might be just standing in the bush 50 metres away, 100 metres away, even further than that, and you can just quietly track it up with the dog until you catch up with it and put another shot in on it. On the other hand, if you send a dog out after that deer, the dog's just going to hit it and just chase it for miles and miles and miles. And now you can end up with lost deer and lost dogs, injured dogs. You're teaching your dog how to chase deer. It's one of those things that has a lot of possible serious downsides, a lot of definite upsides to not doing it, and it has very few upsides. It's just a lot of cons and very few pros. If you look at it, you've got a real good steady dog that will just keep tracking up and sneaking and indicating a wounded deer. If the deer you got three main possibilities. The deer is dead, it's heavily wounded, or it's lightly wounded. If it's dead and your dog just tracks it up nice and slowly, well, you're obviously going to find it because it's going to take you to a dead deer laying on the ground. If it's heavily wounded, it's going to sneak you in on it, and it's easy to sneak up and put another shot on a heavily wounded deer. Neither of those occasions warrant sending a dog out after the deer, because it's either dead or heavily wounded, and you're obviously going to retrieve the deer, so you need to get yourself there anyway. So what's the point of sending the dog out in a hurry to get there and bark at it or do whatever it's going to do, and then you've got to go to the dog? Why don't you just walk in with the dog, all steady and controlled? And if it's lightly wounded, then that's when you really need that steadiness to sneak in and put another shot on it, because if you send a dog out after a lightly wounded, fully mobile deer, you really risk pushing a deer that might be quietly standing only 100 or so metres away, miles and miles, and losing your dog and possibly injuring your dog, all sorts of crazy stuff. Very, very occasionally, with the right dog and the right conditions, yeah, you might have a big tracking job on a lightly wounded deer and you'll spook it a couple of times and you'll just have to keep tracking it until you do get that shot. And very occasionally, the right dog and the right conditions, real steep, gnarly creeks or steep country where the dog can corner the deer in a steep creek, or real thick bush where the deer gets tangled up, yeah, the right dog will stop it quicker than you can sneak up on it. But it's not really, the benefits don't really outweigh the possible cons there, It might take a little bit more time to sneak up on it, but if you really want the ultimate steady, sneaky deer dog, then sending it out chasing deer ain't the way to go anyway. So yeah, this is another big one, like on these videos I've got hundreds of ideas already written down that I'm going to cover, but I'm sort of covering the major ones first. This whole deer dogs chasing wounded deer thing is a huge one. It's really common. It's one, professional hunters, that hunt deer over indicating dogs that shoot a heap more deer than I ever have, or probably will over indicating dogs, wouldn't dream of sending their top deer dogs out after a wounded deer, and they shoot more deer than anyone. Like, I know of guys that probably don't even know how many deer they've shot over indicating dogs. They'd never send their dog out after a wounded deer. Just wouldn't do it. So why would you? I think a lot of this stuff comes from misinformation. You know, people writing about in magazines about their dogs going out and pulling deer down. The Europeans have done it for years. You know, that's how they use their dogs. The hunting conditions are a lot different over there. They use their dogs in a very different way. And if you know, until now with the stuff I'm putting out, the way we use indicating dogs in New Zealand is very different to the way they use them overseas in Europe and that. And so up until now, with a bit of the material I've got online and stuff like that, if you research deer dogs and stuff online, or deer dog training or videos, most of what you find will be that European stuff. And the main ways they use deer dogs, they don't really use deer dogs as indicators before the shot. It's all just for pulling down wounded deer after the shot, and most of that's done either on a leash with the dog just towing the handler around on a leash, or just completely releasing the dog and sending it out to chase it. You know, I mean, I haven't hunted in Europe. I don't know what they exactly how it goes over there and stuff, but I know the conditions are very different. But even in any conditions, I still think the way that the professionals are doing it here in New Zealand is it's the next level up from that. It's the ultimate. And I know it's a big call to make, but I think the way most people are using deer dogs worldwide, even in Europe and UK and stuff like that, I think those methods can be improved on. And I think the way we're using them, professionals using them here in New Zealand, is better. It's the best. So yeah. Anyway, longest video yet, 17 minutes. What's the time? 10 o'clock. Been up writing reports and training programs and stuff. So sweet as. See you next time. Done.